What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be ranking all of the items we currently have in Fortnite Simpsons season loot pool. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, comment down below which item is your favorite and least favorite, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything, it is Evolved Jake, just like my channel name is, and it is above the tier list right now. So my webcam is blocking some of the items, but we will get to them when we get to them. I'm going to start off with my least favorite item in the loot pool, and that is going to be the machine pistol. I do not know why, but I have always had an incredibly low opinion of this SMG. And as far as this season's loot pool goes, this is my least favorite item in the game, and it is the item that I dislike getting most off spawn. So like if I'm landing and this is my only gun, I'm really sad about it. It can melt pretty quickly if you're incredibly close to the enemy, because it does have like a very high fire rate. But the range on it and the spread on it is not that great. And most of the time, I don't want to be just literally barrel stuffing my opponent. So it doesn't really fit how I want to play the game. And as I said, my experience getting this off spawn is dreadful. In reality, it's probably like C or B, but it's just, I dislike getting it so much. Now we're going to get to my favorite item, or the item I think is best in this season. That is going to be the Mr. Blasty pistol. If you've been playing in the Simpsons season, I think having this at S tier is not a surprise to you at all. And the exotic version would also be S tier. I didn't get the exotic version as its separate thing because it wouldn't change the ranking at all. They're both S tier and they're both incredibly good. But this pistol has very high damage. The fire rate and the mag size isn't the greatest, but it's not the biggest deal because the damage is so high and the accuracy is so good. And when you compare it to a lot of the other items in the loot pool, nothing can really contest it at like medium to long range because of how high the damage is and how good the accuracy is. You can like jiggle peek off of cover incredibly well with this item and deal damage very quickly without exposing yourself for long periods of time. The hip fire on it is also incredible, and this is really useful when chasing enemies that are using shockwaves, because if I'm hip firing something like the ARs or maybe the suppressed pistol at them, your odds of hitting a shot are not that great, and then even if you do hit a shot, it's not the biggest deal. But if you hit a hip fire shot on this while you're chasing somebody and get like 50-60 damage on somebody who's already running from you, it just works really good. And to talk about the exotic version, since I don't have it its own like thing, the balloon effect you get from it is just incredibly overpowered. Again, if you guys have played this season, you're probably not surprised at all that it's an S tier. But you don't even have to hit the enemy to give them the balloon effect. And this makes it really good for forcing people out of cover or just any sort of like awkward scenario. The exotic is really good. One thing that I appreciate about it, again, is going to be the hip fire. When you shockwave up and then kind of shoot down with this balloon version, I feel like you make the situation really chaotic for the enemy, because not only are you shockwaving around, but now they're floating up and they're probably getting tagged by the pistol. So this is just S tier, and like I said, it's most people's favorite item in the loot pool right now, or the best item in the loot pool. I think the infantry rifle is also S tier. Both the infantry rifle and the Mr. Blasty pistol I think are good for similar reasons. They have very high damage and they have very good accuracy, and again, with like the third person bloom weapons this season, nothing can really contest them at range. They both have kind of the same downside of hipfire, but the reason why I prefer to take the Mr. Blasty over the infantry rifle is mainly going to be that hipfire that I talked about. The infantry rifle's hipfire is not that great, so I feel like when I'm looking at both of these items, I definitely want to have one of them, but I prefer the Mr. Blasty because I feel like the Mr. Blasty, for me, can do everything that the infantry rifle can do, and more because of that hipfire. But the infantry is also incredibly good. Damage very high. When you're in medium to long range fights, if you get, you know, 2 body shots or you get a headshot, that's often enough damage to key off, and the accuracy is so good that you can pretty reliably land shots at range, which is something that can't really said about either of the ARs. I'm going to put them both in S tier, or A tier, sorry, rather, though. I think the suppressed scar and the striker AR are both solid ARs this season, especially for what you end up needing them to be, because they're mostly going to be for like more medium range situations. Long range is going to be dominated by the Mr. Blasty and by the infantry rifle, and the bloom makes these kind of a struggle to use at those ranges anyway. So I feel like the way these items exist in the loot pool makes these ones not as big of a deal to me, like the bloom on them. If the Mr. Blasty and the infantry rifle didn't exist and these were like our only ranged options, it would be really awkward to play this season. But I think they're both fine. I prefer the suppressed scar to the striker AR. I feel like it has, obviously it has less recoil, but also I feel like the bloom isn't as big of a deal for me with the suppressed scar than it is the striker AR. Like the striker AR, the crosshair expands much more rapidly, but the striker AR does have a higher fire rate. So like the striker AR would kind of pair better with the thunder pump, but I think they both do a fine job and they both just kind of do what I need. So I'm going to put them both A tier, but I would have the suppressed AR higher than the striker AR. Another class of weapon I'm going to put both in A tier is going to be the thunder and the tactical shotgun. And this list is kind of boring this season, I think, because the balance is incredibly good. I feel like most things are just solid and it really comes down to preference. Between the tac and the thunder, if you're playing builds, the thunder is probably just a clear winner. But for zero builds, I feel like it really just comes down to the player. It comes down to preference, and it probably comes down to rarity. If you have like a gold thunder or a gray tac, obviously you're going to take the thunder. But if you have the mythic tac or like a mid thunder, probably going to take the tac. With how this season plays and how chaotic it is, I have preferred the tac shotgun most, I think. But I could see a world where like a week or two down the line, as we get more and more accustomed to the season, maybe the thunder becomes my preferred shotgun. But so far this season, I think the tac has definitely been my preferred shotgun. And as I've seen looking at other like zero build players and zero build streamers, it seems like the tac is widely considered to be the best, if not considered to be incredibly good. Like even people I see prefer the thunder, I've seen them post about like how busted the tac feels sometimes. So yeah, there's not really much to say there other than it's just preference, and both are good and both feel fine to use this season. The Ranger shotgun is not one that I've ever enjoyed. The kind of gimmick of this shotgun is that it only has one shot, but it has a lot of range, and it has like a very high base damage to where basically if you hit the opponent, you're going to be getting like 70 plus damage, typically like closer to 100. I've just never really cared for this weapon. I feel like the playstyle it kind of goes towards just is more, I don't necessarily say passive, but like it is more passive in the sense that you want to play behind cover and play like more range to your shotgun fights. And with how this season plays out, I just feel like it doesn't really, it wouldn't work that well for me. And as I said, this has never been an item that I enjoyed using, so I'm probably biased here. But it's fine, I guess, off spawn. But with how chaotic and third party centric this season is, I really don't want to be using a shotgun with only one shell in it. And that's kind of a detriment to the thunder as well, is that the reload on it is so slow and clunky that it doesn't fare very well in those situations where like you just got done with a fight and then there's somebody already like hopping on you. But yeah, like I feel like the Ranger being low, like I said, is just my own personal preference and is more kind of the play out, or like the way the season plays, I feel like contributes to that more than anything. Next, we're gonna have the suppressed pistol. This is B, borderline A to me. I could definitely see running this instead of the suppressed scar or the striker AR. It has way less bloom than those, but the trade-off is the magazine size is quite low. The reload speed is solid though, so it's not like it's the end of the world. But the accuracy this has, I think a lot of people will like. If you've been struggling to deal with the striker AR or the suppressed AR because of the bloom, then you might want to try using the suppressed pistol, because you can full spray this most of the time without really worrying about it, because the max spread is not that large, and you can also move around when shooting without worrying about it as much, because again, the max spread is not very large. If you're like strafing and full spraying with the suppressed AR or the striker AR, your spread is going to be pretty large, and that means your odds of hitting shots are, you know, lower. But I think the suppressed pistol is good. And another time where I do prefer this over these other ARs is going to be if I'm shockwave chasing somebody and wanting to like spray at them from the air. Doing that with the suppressed AR or the striker AR feels just completely random to me, because the spread gets very large when you're like hip firing while in the air. But the suppressed pistol, it's the spread is there. It's not like you're going to be hitting every single shot, but it's small enough to where I feel like you can still like consistently land shots somewhat. So I like it for that. And I think this is probably the most underrated weapon in the season. There will probably be a video about that in a few days. The final weapon in the loot pool is going to be the compact SMG. This again could go B or A. I'm just going to put it B, but I think this weapon is also pretty underrated. And with how this season plays, again, this is something that may change over time as people get more used to the season. But the pacing of the season is weird, and I feel like there's a lot of like very awkward fights, and the compact SMG kind of cleans up in those situations. But there's not really much more to say about it. It's just like a really solid SMG. If you like using the thunder, hitting a hard thunder shot into just like staying on the compact SMG is very viable. I know one thing that a lot of people don't like about the Thunder is the clunkiness from like swapping and being able to shoot again just feels off for a lot of people, and they end up messing up their shots. But with this combo of Thunder and Compact SMG, I feel like if you hit a hard Thunder shot, you could just kind of stay on the SMG for the remainder of the fight because it is very good and the hip fire on it is very solid. As far as the Mythics go, there's a Mythic Tac Shotgun and a Mythic Compact SMG. Neither of those really change how I feel about the weapon too much, as I kind of talked about with the exotic pistol. It's like this pistol was so good whether it's base or exotic, you know, and then same with the TAC and same with the SMG. Obviously, you would want to have the Mythic one. It's just more damage, so it's cool, nice, but it's not like I have it much higher because of that. It's just like, it's fine. If you didn't like using the Compact SMG, just because you got the Mythic, you probably shouldn't end up using it, and same with TAC. Like, if you hate the TAC, don't use it just because you got the Mythic version, unless, you know, you like it enough to where that change makes sense. Both of the cover items this season, I'm going to have at A tier. I don't really enjoy using either of them for public matches, but I think they're both pretty solid. And, like, with how, like, again, the pacing of this season is just very awkward. So having bunkers or having these bushes can definitely win you fights in certain situations where the enemy doesn't really have any cover at all. This is a very timing-based season, and the two things you kind of can do to deal with bad timing in zero build is going to be either mobility items or cover items, and both of these cover items do the job well. Normally, I would have bushes a bit lower. I don't really care for the bush item. But this season, the bushes are actually incredibly overpowered. Just something about like the Simpsons art style, I feel like makes it harder to see enemies that are in bushes. And it seems like the bushes are much larger than they usually are. I don't know if that's just like a weird like thing that I've noticed that isn't actually true. I don't know how, don't know the word I'm looking for. But I don't know if it's actually true or not, but it feels like the bushes are much larger to me this season is what I'm trying to say. And now I'm going to do mobility, but I realized that I have left something off the list, and that's going to be shockwave grenades. I would have both shockwave grenades and the blinky fish at S tier. And as I talked about with this season, it is very, very, very third-party centric, and it is very like just timing based. I feel like there's always timing that really matters in battle royales and that really matters in Fortnite. But I feel like this season more than any other, it really just comes down to timing in a lot of situations. And as I just kind of touched on with the cover items, the two things you can really do to deal with unfortunate timing in zero build is going to be mobility or cover items. And so I would have both shockwaves and the blinky fish at S tier. Again, I don't have shockwaves on here currently, but let's just go ahead and get it, I guess, real quick. But both the blinky fish and the shockwaves get the job done as far as mobility goes. I prefer to have shockwaves just because it's what I like most. Like it's been an item that I really enjoy using and that I've really enjoyed using for a long time in Fortnite. But the blinky fish is also very good, and the blinky fish is very overpowered situationally. And I've seen a lot of people have frustration with this season where they like someone just hops on them with the blinky fish and they feel like the fight is unwinnable. And I feel like that is true. If you have no blinky fish and the player you're fighting has the blinky fish active, you are at a massive disadvantage going into that fight, especially if it's a neutral fight. If you're both just full HP and they have the blink effect active and you don't, you're probably going to lose that fight. And so the main kind of thing you want to do, I feel like, when dealing with the blinky fish is just leave. If I'm having a neutral fight with somebody and they have it active, I'm just going to probably shockwave away if I have the opportunity to, and then hopefully have a fight where that's not happening. A lot of people this season like to just carry double mobility and carry both of these items, and I think that is very valid because they're both really solid mobility items. I feel like shockwaves are a bit better for like pushing enemies because you can just kind of get there very quickly and the enemy has less of a say in it. But the blinky fish is probably better for rotations in the end game, and also better for traveling the map and for like actually fighting, as we kind of talked about. If you have the blinky fish active and they don't, you're probably going to win that fight. I believe this also heals some amount of white health, but the healing effect of it is really not that significant to the point where it's like making me want to carry it more than that. A lot of times between the fish or shockwaves, I'll just end up taking which one I have more of. If I have the choice of like 3 fish or 1 shockwave, I'm definitely taking the fish. But if I have the choice of several shockwaves or 1 fish, probably going to take the shockwaves, right? And I feel like shockwaves are more plentiful on the map, just from my experience playing. But both of these mobility items are very good, and if you want to use both of them and then just run 2 guns, I think that's a very valid setup. The next item I'm going to have in S tier, I think is going to be somewhat surprising to a lot of people, and that is going to be the burgers. So the burgers have gotten a lot of attention since the season started for being like the best healing item in the game. But why a lot of people might have it lower now is because Fortnite recently nerfed the max stack of burgers you can carry from 6 to 3. So it's not definitively just night and day, like clearly the best choice as far as heals go. But I think it is still the best choice for like fighting mobility, or fighting heals, sorry. And as I've touched on several times in this video, this season is very timing based and it is very third party centric. So if I'm getting unfortunate timing or I'm getting third partied and I need to like shockwave away and reset, or I need to blink away and reset, there's no healing item I would rather have in the game right now than the burgers, because you can quickly eat the burger and then it just heals over time. All of the other healing items, while you might be able to carry more heals in a single slot, which maybe provides more value, they're a bit slower to use, or they take a bit longer to use, because like with the big pots and the chug, you need to like continuously use them. Or with the splashes, you need to be on the ground. You can't be in the air while splashing, if you want to actually affect yourself, you know, because you splash the ground next to yourself to heal. These burgers are just the best healing item for those like make or break important moments. And even though I can't carry 6 of them all the time now, I'm completely fine surviving a situation where I maybe would have died without the burgers to be able to reset and find more heals later on. So I often still land near areas where there are plates of burgers, or rotate through them and stock up on 3. And this is just my preferred healing item to carry because of how good I think it is in those important situations. The Chug Jug is a good healing item if you're completely left alone and you know you have unlimited time to heal. But in most situations, that's not going to be the case, you know. And in situations where you had just complete peace and all the time in the world to heal, it doesn't really matter which one you have, because your time isn't a factor. This is the best at kind of dealing with terrible situations, and so that's why I value it most. The rest of the heals, I'm going to probably just put at A tier. I think they're all fine. And as I just said, I like burgers. This is my favorite one. But if I don't have burgers and I have big pots instead, or if I have the Chug Jug instead, or if I have splashes instead, that's fine. I'm probably just going to take whichever one I find. So if I have 1 big pot or 6 splashes, I'm going to take the splashes. If I have a chug with 60 in it, or 3 big pots, I'm going to take the big pots. It really just comes down to how much you find. I feel like with a lot of the other heals, splashes definitely have more value in team game modes because you can heal everybody on your team. But oftentimes you're not going to have the ability to do that in a very chaotic situation. If it's like a chaotic team fight and you're kind of spread out, kind of more trouble than it's worth trying to group up to heal. So it really just depends. But as I said, my preference is still going to be burgers. This slushy thing, I don't know where to put this. So I don't really use this too much. I know a lot of people rate this very highly because it kind of gives you a pseudo low gravity effect, which can really amplify these other mobility items. Like if you have the slushy and the fish at the same time, you're traveling around the map incredibly quickly. But that's just not really something that I need all the time, and it's not something I want to dedicate an inventory slot to. And that's my main kind of thing about this, is I'll use it when I find it, but I do not want to carry this. This combo is good of fish and the slushy, but it's not worth 2 slots to me. And in the past, we had Flowberry Fizz, which was like a pseudo mobility and healing item combined. And that's kind of what this slushy is too, where it gives you the low gravity effect and then it's also a heal. But I feel like the Fizz was just a better healing item. I think this takes 2 seconds and gives you 25. And when you look at the burgers giving you like 40 in a second, I mean, obviously it does need to tick up over time, but the use time of this just feels clunky to me. Oh, it also does give you unlimited sprint. But as I said, this is just something that I'll use when I find it, but I'm pretty much never going to actively carry this. If you like doing that, that's completely fine. And in a very stacked, chaotic endgame, having the slushy and the fish and just being able to exist and not get focused out in that chaos is definitely, you know, a point of value. But for public matches, which is what most people are playing, especially in zero build, I just don't really rate this as highly. The rest of the heals, I think I'm just going to put at B tier. Like, I rarely carry white heals. Again, in competitive, this would maybe be something that's really good to carry, but I just don't make these lists for competitive because the zero build ranked or zero build competitive scene is incredibly minuscule. Shieldfish are probably S tier, but I'm never going to like fish enough to consistently carry them. And one of the downsides of this item is that like if you need to use one but still carry the other two, it's like you're not going to find another shieldfish probably. Whereas like burgers are also only in stacks of 3, but they spawn more plentiful around the map. And there's several plates of burgers around the map that you can kind of top off on. So that's like, shieldfish are great, but like the fact that you're rarely going to be repopulating them over the course of the game is the reason why they're not really talked about as much. Again, in competitive, where people care more about like winning and are willing to like maybe fish for a while to get them, like sure, but for pubs, whatever, I'd rather just have burgers. And then this head, I'm probably going to put it B tier, maybe C tier. I don't think this thing is really that great. What it does is it blocks a shot worth of headshot damage, which in certain situations can be great and maybe can just completely win you the fight. Especially in a close range shotgun fight, if the enemy uses their thunder shotgun to like knock your Jebediah head off, then like that's perfect for you. But the fact that this marks you on the map like a medallion, I think is really bad, because as I've said a million times this video, this season is incredibly timing based and you will get chain third partied. And I feel like whenever I come across somebody that has this head, or I see it on the map and then I go there, it's like the most like struggle of a chaotic situation where whoever had it is just getting like chain third partied, or maybe someone killed someone who had it and then more people are just showing up to third party that fight. Just feel like marking yourself on the map is not it this season, and the value that this thing provides is not worth that. But you know, you might feel differently about that, and that's fine. Also, don't like that it takes an inventory slot. If it took no inventory slots like medallions, it would probably be more worthwhile. But again, with like the size of this map and the pacing of this map and how this season plays, I think the marking yourself on the map aspect of this is more detrimental than it ever has been. And so it has that going for it. The effect is just okay. It's really not that amazing. And then it also takes an inventory slot. So I feel like this is something that got a lot of attention early on, where people were like expecting it to be really overpowered. But I don't really care about this or rate it too highly. And if I'm going into a fight with an opponent who has it, it's not really something that I worry too much about. I just try to like spray it off with my spray weapon before I get into like the shotgun fight. Quickly before the video ends, I'm going to rank some weapons that weren't out when I initially recorded this video. I recorded it before Tuesday's update, which added new items. So I'm going to go ahead and rank the new items that Fortnite added: the chainsaw, the deodorant applicator, Mo's 5-gun, and then the cobalt slingshot. With this update, there were some balance changes as well, but none of that really changes how I feel about things too much. The Mr. Blasty pistol got slightly more bloom added to it, so it's a bit less accurate, but I don't think this is really that noticeable of a change. And then the Ranger shotgun also got +5 to its maximum damage cap, which is nice, but again, doesn't really change how I feel about it that much. It was already like borderline C to me, borderline B or C to me, and that's kind of still how I feel about it. But we did get several new items added. So we're going to start off with the Mo's 5-gun. I am an absolute hater of this item. I think I said in my initial recording that the machine pistol is my least favorite item in the loot pool. That is now the Mo's 5-gun. This is like a combination of a shotgun and an SMG, similar to what we had with the pump and dump. But if you guys remember with the pump and dump, you had one button to shoot the shotgun and one button to shoot the SMG. For this, you just hit the shoot button and it will shoot both the shotgun and the SMG at the same time, which sounds like perfect. But it will only shoot the shotgun once per trigger pull. If you just press the trigger and hold it, it'll shoot the shotgun and the SMG, but it won't shoot the shotgun second shot unless you release the fire button and then press it again. And I feel like that just makes it kind of clunky to use. Like, I feel like a weapon like this, I would just want to hold the shoot button the entire time and then just dump out all the damage that it can, you know? But having to stop shooting to shoot the shotgun again, I feel like just is grief. And I just didn't like how this weapon played at all. I feel like it's much more of like a close range oriented weapon, and every single time I was using it versus something like attack, I just wished I was having the attack. I think I said this in my initial update video. I'd rather just use the compact SMG than use this, or I'd rather just use the attack. But like using this combo shotgun and SMG item, I just don't really care for. The deodorant applicator, I kind of want to put A or B. I think it's very good. It also got a buff to its it got +1 damage since it was in for just the weekend. And I like this weapon because it has no bloom and no spread at all in a season where everything is bloom based. If we had red dot ARs in the loot pool, I don't think this would be really that worthwhile or like that noteworthy. But the fact that it's like the only perfectly accurate weapon kind of carves out a niche for it. It's really low damage, but it also has a very high fire rate. And again, it has that accuracy. It's also nice that you can hip fire this at people and get perfect accuracy, which is helpful if you're like chasing somebody who's using shockwaves, or the dashes, which is something like those two things happen a decent amount this season. And then also when you shoot somebody with this, they get like an electrified effect on their screen, and it can be kind of off-putting to play against that. It's not like it really messes things up too much, but I think a lot of people do get kind of thrown off by that animation. So this is B tier to me, borderline A tier. I think I could put it A, but I think most people are going to have it B. The Cobalt Slingshot, I think, is the same thing. There's situations where this is going to be the best item in the game. It shoots like an explosive, and then a gas cloud is remaining after where the explosive lands to deal like continuous damage to the enemies. But my main kind of knock against it is the gas cloud isn't very large. So this would be really helpful for like forcing people off of cover or forcing people out of bushes. But the gas cloud is small enough to the point where like people can often avoid it. And then the damage is only 50 for the explosion and 15 if you hit. So if you hit someone dead on, you'll get 65 damage, which is okay for an area of effect weapon, but the pistol does about that if you just hit them. And like if you're peeking into somebody using this and they pistol headshot you, you're going to be having a rough time. So I feel like this weapon utility wise is very helpful, but in practice, it's not the greatest. In the past, we had something like the explosive repeater that was really good at knocking people off of cover, even with less damage, I think. But the thing about the repeater was it was really spammable, whereas this thing kind of shoots pretty slow. They did buff the projectile speed, meaning the projectile itself will travel faster, but the fire rate of the item is still not the fastest, which makes it not the greatest at actually forcing people off of cover. But this is another like B borderline A item. I think it's solid, and it definitely has its use, but it's not really something I want to use. I think in team game modes, it probably has a bit more value. And then the final thing we're going to talk about is going to be the chainsaw. This is the wrong icon for it. It's like the cartoon chainsaw, but this was the asset that I could find. Either way, it's the same thing. It works identical to the chainsaw we had in chapter 5 and 6, but it no longer has durability. It does have fuel that can run out, but it just goes on cooldown. So it's like the fuel runs out, you just wait for it to come back and you're good to go. So it no longer has durability, which is a good thing. And I think as far as mobility goes, the chainsaw has a bit more room to actually be good in this season because there's less cars on the map, and it's just a much smaller map in general than what we had in chapter 6. So I feel like just traveling around with the chainsaw is a bit more viable. You still are really exposed, but with us mostly having third-person weapons in the loot pool, you can maybe get by being a little bit more exposed. I feel like with the accuracy, the Mr. Blasty, the infantry rifle, or the suppressed AR has, though, most decent players are just going to have no problem beaming you off the chainsaw. And that's kind of why it's A tier and not S tier. I definitely have a higher opinion of it this season than I have in any other season it's been in, but it's still not really something I would prefer to use if I was using one mobility item. I still rate these other mobility items higher. Even if I wanted to use double mobility, I would want to use the dash fish and shockwaves. But if this is all I got, I'm not like that sad about it. It's much better than having no mobility at all. So that is going to be the additions of the recent items we had in the update to the tier list. And that will get into the outro. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful and informative or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more. Let me know down in the comments below which item is your favorite and least favorite, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.